go again?
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections of mine. The Matrix Resurrections is the fourth live-action installment in the Matrix franchise, coming out a full 18 years after the 2003 releases of The Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. This is directed by Lana Wachowski and stars once again Keanu Reeves as Neo, Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity, and newcomers Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Morbius, and Jessica Henwick as new character Bugs. And this film focuses on Keanu Reeves' character Neo, who seems to be back in the Matrix. And we're not sure how he's not sure how he's here or how he's back. And these new characters are trying to convince them that, once again, he is not living in the real world. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of The Matrix Resurrections, but I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts first, and then I'll be getting into spoilers later. But just so you know, there will be some spoilers later on in this review. But first, let's get into some spoiler-free thoughts on The Matrix Resurrections. Is this a good film? Is it worth seeing in theaters, or should you just catch it on HBO Max? In my opinion, this is definitely going to be one that's going to polarize people. And if you've never, if this is going to be your first exposure to the Matrix as a franchise, don't watch this one. Watch the original, because you're going to be very confused if this is your first exposure to anything, Matrix-related media. But for those who have seen the previous three movies, as well as the Animatrix, is this worth seeing in a theater? Again, this is going to be polarizing. In my opinion, no. If you want to catch it on HBO Max, definitely check that out. It's interesting to see, but I think there isn't enough in this movie that works, in my opinion, to warrant seeing it in a movie theater. Now, again, I'm not gonna get into spoilers just yet, and keep in mind, because of the Christmas weekend, my usual production timeline is a little compressed, so I'm seeing this about 25 minutes after getting out of the movie. So my thoughts and emotions on this film are kind of raw, and I haven't had time to process everything. So maybe my opinion will change as time passes by from this. But after just coming out of this experience, so I will say, I am a fan of the Matrix franchise. Yes, I was. The Matrix, the original one, was, when growing up, that was like the forbidden movie. Like, I watched parts of it growing up, but then I was. My parents would always, told me, shut my eyes or get out of the room when we get to the famous lobby scene or anything like that. So. I always had a fascination with The Matrix. In fact, around the time when the sequels came out, I was in 5th grade, and we would always have these in the computer lab. Every time we logged out and logged back in, like the teachers would occasionally go back and erase any custom wallpaper or something that a student would put up there every now and then. I would always find this Matrix wallpaper, and I just love the Matrix. And I just rewatched all three Matrix live-action Matrix movies beforehand, and I will say I am a fan of all three. Granted, 2 and 3 are not nearly as good as the first one. 2, I think, gets a bad rap, more so than most, and that it should. And it's more good than bad. Reloaded, Revolutions, I have a harder time defending, but I still enjoy it as a movie goes. This one, honestly, I was having a hard time enjoying this. And I tell you all this because I was coming in with this, pre-stirred love of this franchise and wanting this to succeed and wanting this to be at least an enjoyable experience. I gotta tell you, I was not enjoying this, and it's such a bummer because there are some things in this movie, like conceptually and art direction wise, that are like great evolutions of the concepts that were instilled in the original Matrix movies. And I love the fact that they put some thought into, like, all right, where there are so many years removed from the last movies, like, what are we going to do different? How are we going to change things up in this? And they did put some thought into that. Like, one of the things that struck me when rewatching the original Matrixes is that it makes me wonder, like, how younger people, like, people who were my age when the sequels were coming out, in the 9 or 10, I was 10 years old when the sequel 2 came out, and I'm wondering how how the younger kids are going to go back and rewatch these movies and connect with them, because, like, the thing that struck me is, like, how they relate to, entering into the Matrix, and, like, the terminology that they go about when, like, they're talking about hacking into the Matrix and all that. It's all based on, like, landlines for one, and dial-up, really. Like, the imagery, it's all about, rotary phones and dial-up, and it's like, yeah, that was the technology at the time, and we don't have that anymore, obviously. We progressed, and how are they going to change that? Like, one of the changes that they make is, instead of, using landlines or whatever, they even throw in a clever line that's like, yes, we don't even have to use payphones anymore, because, yes, payphones are much harder to find now than they were in 1999 and 2003. Now it's the mirrors themselves that are the portals, and that's a great evolution. I love that part of it. Also, there's other things like, I would definitely recommend rewatching the sequel to Reloaded and Revolutions, because even though there are plenty of flashbacks in this movie to those films, you probably want to rewatch them anyway, just so you can get the context of what's going on with this and how those changes came about. And some of those changes, like, again, no spoilers beyond, using mirrors as portals. That's not really a spoiler, really. Again, those changes are good. And also, on a personal note, Brian J. Smith plays one of the new characters in this film, and I'm just glad to see him back in something. The last time I remember I saw him, I know him from Stargate Universe, and he plays Lieutenant Matthew Scott, and I love that. But that was over a decade ago now, and I hadn't seen him for a while in anything new. So glad to see him back. Nice to see you make a reappearance, and you did a good job in this. So if you're watching, if for whatever reason you're watching this, sir, good job. But other than that, that's really all the positives I have in this film. Again, without going into too many spoilers, I feel like the general consensus about why people don't like the Reloaded and Revolutions is that those films doubled down on the philosophy aspects of things so much that it kind of felt like it's purposefully crawling up its own butt just to, and it's not really it's trying to be so cryptic and get people thinking that it's essentially saying nothing. I feel like this film falls into the same trap. And again, there's stuff in the beginning, it's like, alright, it's different, but then what are we going to do with it? And then it kind of gets dropped at the end of the first act, and then it's like, alright, that was the last, interesting thing that you could do philosophy-wise, and then everything else, it's like, okay, whatever. You're basically saying the same commentary that, like, movies have been saying for probably 10 years now. What's different? And the other thing is, again, the other reason that people don't like the Reloaded Revolutions is that the CGI in those films, they were asking too much of CGI at that time, and it really shows, especially in Reloaded at times. But in this film, yes, the CGI looks great, but people in my opinion, people who love the Matrix films, they like it for either one of two reasons. One is the action, and one is the philosophy. You can get the philosophy in this film, sort of, but then the other aspect is the action, and I'm sorry, the action just isn't good in this movie, and that's really a shame. They instead of lingering on shots and like getting good choreography or something going, it's just edited to bits, and it's a lot of it's in dark rooms, or outside at night when it's raining, and it's like you can't see anything, and it's chopped, and it's chopped up so much in editing. It's like, why? This doesn't look like this looks like every other bad action movie that I've seen in the past decade. There's nothing new about this, and it's such a shame. Like, especially by the second half of the movie, it's just downright boring in my opinion. That's probably this film's greatest sin. That's just like a Matrix. I mean, say what you want about Reloaded and Revolutions, but I wouldn't call them boring. Weird, yes. Not as good. Make some baffling choices, yes. Not as good as the original, yes. But I don't consider them boring. This film, in my opinion, it was just so boring by the end, and I just felt empty by the end. It's like it didn't give me anything, and when you could argue that, and again, there's like books been written on like the philosophy of the Matrix, the religion or whatever, and the commentary on that. Arguably, I would say if you were to distill the message of the first Matrix down to being the one line by Morpheus is "free your mind." In this, in Resurrections, I could not hazard a guess as to what the message was. Like even 2 and 3, I at least knew that there was a message being conveyed, even though I'm trying to parse the specifics. I'm like, okay, like how is that going on? It can get confusing there. At least I knew what the message that they were trying to convey was, maybe a little bit. This one, I could not tell you. So I gotta say, this was a disappointment for me, and that's why I say, if you have an HBO Max subscription, check it out there. Like, nothing in this film warrants you needing to see it on the big screen and with a crowd. Like, this might be an overstretch on my part, but I somehow predict that this film might end up going the way of Independence Day 2, I can't remember, Resurgence? Yes. That one, where it was like made so far after that, it's like, alright, we waiting for a new one for so long, what are you going to do with it? And then it's like, it's just going to be forgotten by the end. You can debate me in the comments below, but if I was going to give The Matrix Resurrections letter grade, this is a D+, in my opinion. Again, there's some, I would say, there's like 30 to 35% of this film is innovative and worth seeing, just for art directions and concept-wise evolutions from the previous film that I think are worth seeing. But then the other 65 to 70%, nothing. Not for me as a Matrix fan. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts on The Matrix Resurrections. Now let's get into some spoiler talk about certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Now, this one is one where now bringing back, I believe it's the same actress who played Sati in Revolutions, and if it is the same actress, like, cool, that's a great detail that we bring her back. And I guess her father, the father program, designed the resurrection pods, and she goes on this talk. It's like, when he knew that what they were going to be using these pods for, he lost his heart. He couldn't do it, so he gave the plans to me. And it's like, how did that not strike anyone as being a complete ripoff of Rogue One? I mean, seriously, did no one see that? That's one thing. Another thing is, by the end, when Neo and Trinity are on the bike and they're going through, I mean, I like that they kind of teased Neil Patrick Harris's analyst character, he teases that, oh, this new Matrix, we got the swarm mode, that's, badass or whatever, and, when they get the swarm mode, it's like, okay, we're getting something interesting going on here, but then, we get people, the swarm mode's programming people to, just tumble out of high rises on to try to hit Neo and Trinity as they're going down. That just kind of made me think of Fate of the Furious when they're doing the chase scene and Cypher remote hacks all these cars in a parking garage and just programs them to run themselves off of this parking garage onto the cars, so they're trying to dodge that. So that was a weird parallel to be made there. And then finally, the analyst's plan, how he remade the Matrix, again, confusing as to how they're explaining. It's like they explain in the movie. It's like, all right, yes, we have the there was peace, and the future wasn't just man or machine. It had to be man and machine. It's like, okay, cool. And then it defined it redefined what the other side was. Like, did we really get an answer as to what the other side was, other than maybe some vague references to oh, there's scarcity and power, and now the analysts remade a Matrix where you get great power generation, but it has to have Neo and Trinity as the central component of them, and their conflict is fueling the Matrix somehow, and his whole thing is oh man, power production's up 110% or whatever from what it was, or something like that, and it's that makes me kind of think of Monsters Inc. It's the whole goal of the evil guys is more power, and it's such a weird callback, weird tie-in, and it's why? I don't know. But yeah, the only thing I wanted to talk about is the meta-ness, the self-awareness. In the beginning when the Matrix, at first it was kind of jarring when Neo / Thomas Anderson goes into the boss's office, which I guess is Smith. They don't really explain Smith being back well at all, because they had a great thing where it's oh, the new Morpheus is he was a program, but he has combinations of both Morpheus and Smith in his own personality. They don't really use that to anything, so that's kind of a wasted thing, but that was an interesting concept. But anyway, when they're getting into it's oh, I mean, you're making a game developer, and you're looking at old Matrix code. That's interesting. We're gonna make a fourth Matrix movie because our corporate overlords Warner Brothers decided. It's that's really jarring at first, and then when they get into it, and then they start analyzing oh, what made the Matrix great, and then they do that whole shtick, and then when they get back to it, it's oh, it ends. This whole meta-ness ends when Bugs takes Neo. It's this old movie theater where they're actually literally projecting the Matrix onto the screen or whatever. That was weird, but it was interesting. And I was all right, where are you gonna go with this? And then it just kind of stops, and it's okay. Well, it doesn't. I wouldn't say the menace completely stops, because there's one line they tried to slip it in there and move on as if nothing happens. But I noticed, and I don't often do this, but I actually went ugh, in the theater. It was kind of embarrassing for me having to do this. It's because I mean, in the when they introduce this character Bugs, all right, my name is Bugs, as in Bunny and devices that listen in. It's okay, interesting. You got, I mean, there is that little Warner Brothers tie-in, but then you got the Matrixy bit. It's okay, that's kind of clever. But then when they rescue Neo, Neo's physical body is back in the real world, and then they reunite on the ship. Bugs just goes. They have the doctor on board, and then of course she's just "What's up, Doc?" It's really, and it's I think again, I didn't see Space Jam: A New Legacy, but it's I suspect some people might start drawing connections to that. It's Warner Brothers, are you alright? Because meta-ness it is possible to be too meta in a movie. Alright? And so, I mean, those are the things I wanted to talk about this movie. Again, I'm kind of raw, just coming out of this fresh from the screening. And my my feelings might simmer down a little bit as time goes by. But what did you think of The Matrix Resurrections? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next movie review, which will be for The King's Man, which is out now, so I'll be seeing that soon, next couple days, and doing a review of that. Also, I'm going to be doing a full Season 1 review of Hawkeye as well, since the finale dropped this week. As well as be sure to look for my review and reaction series to each and every episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 4. And if you liked this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a merry and safe Christmas, y'all. And again, Merry Christmas, hopefully, and have a safe time. But as always, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.